for now. I'm going to go to Jim Finan now. He was on board the train. He's a witness to what happened. And once we establish the line here, Jim's going to tell us a story about what he experienced at, well, I guess 8:45 in the morning. Jim, can you hear me?
I can. Good morning.
What happened?
I mean, basically, as we were kind of pulling in the station, you could feel that we were going too fast. You know, I was talking to one of my other friends, and he was saying, you know, we never slowed down. And you kind of, you know, luckily I was sitting, so I think most of the people who were hurt were the ones who were standing on the train. It was a really crowded train this morning. And we plowed, I mean, right through the bumper and across the platform. Never slowed down. I mean, the experience was almost kind of like you almost felt like you were in an off-road vehicle, like bouncing around, like in your seat. And then, you know, afterwards, there was some panic. You know, people were trying to smash the windows out, trying to get out, and just kind of trying to calm people down. You know, and you know, a few people climbed out the windows, but then, you know, they got the doors open. So then, you know, people kind of, at that point, once the doors got open, everyone kind of relaxed and calmed down a bit.
Yeah. Jim, let me just ask you a few specific questions. Where do you live?
I live in River Edge, New Jersey.
Okay, you're in New Jersey, and you take this train how often around this time?
I take this train every day.
Every day. And so you know the pattern in the path, correct? Literally.
Yes.
And when you describe coming into the train station at excessive speed, so you knew where you were, and you knew where the train should have been speed-wise at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was coming in at full tilt. I mean, typically what happens when you're coming in, the train usually actually stops, like a couple, you know, maybe like 100 yards from even the platform, and then kind of goes in slowly.
And you're seated. You're seated at this point, but you say many people were standing. Is there a way to give us an idea about the number of people who were standing? Was it considered a packed car or just a regular commuter car for that time of day?
It was more crowded than usual this morning. You know, what typically would happen, there was a lot of people standing, but typically what happens is a lot of people transfer into caucus. So, you know, about half the train kind of files out, so then you get those people grab seats for the kind of the last 10 minutes of their commute. But I mean, there was a good 20, 25 people standing in the first car.
In that car, right. And now, Jim, describe the moment of impact. What did you experience?
You know, I mean, it was just bumpy, and then you kind of just, you know, you're getting bounced around and then just slammed forward. And, you know, everyone who was standing kind of went flying. And, you know, obviously that's when most of those people got hurt. You know, I saw a lot of head injuries and a lot of kind of people with cuts.
Jim, at impact, did you move physically, or did you remain in your seat?
I didn't fall out of my seat. I remained seated. You know, my head kind of came forward a bit, but at that point I was kind of took my arm and kind of braced myself against the front seat, kind of bracing for impact, you know, just because there was a good, it was a good 30 seconds of kind of crash, where you felt the train, you know, you were coming off the track, like you knew you weren't on the track anymore, and it was just, and you were just kind of waiting for the impact.
You described people breaking windows. How did you get out of that train?
I got out through the door. I mean, I helped knock the window out, and then I helped two people out of the window. I was actually sitting at the emergency exit window. And then by that time, after we got two people out, and you know, a man jumped out, and then we helped another woman out. By that time, they got the doors open manually. So people were able to just file out the doors at that point.
Jim, can I ask you, what was going through your mind when this happened? Can you remember?
A lot of expletives. It was scary. You know, I just kept thinking that you know, I was just hoping that we weren't going to flip. That's what kept going through my mind. I was actually expecting the train to flip over, and that's really what I was worried about. But luckily that didn't happen.
In the time between, you described when you felt like you were going off-road, that you knew you were off the track to the point of impact. How long did that feel like to you?
You know, it felt, you know, it was like a good 30 seconds.
Wow.
You know, it was pretty quick. I mean, it was going in pretty fast.
What did you see on the platform once you got out as you were exiting? Did it seem like that there were people who were stuck on the platform? What did you see outside the train?
It was hard to tell because a lot of the roof was caved in kind of over and around the train. I'm not sure if anyone was stuck inside the car. I couldn't really see because even though I was in the first car, I was towards the back of the first car. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in the front of the first car, so I'm not sure if anyone was trapped up front.
Real quick, you feel like you're going to ride the train again?
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to ride tomorrow because I'm probably not running.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to take the train. It's the best way to see to the city.
Jim, can I just get you on two more questions here? You describe a fast speed upon approach. We had an expert on last hour who's not there, granted, but he was suggesting even a train at 10 or 15 miles an hour could cause this much damage. Do you have any way to tell how fast you were going?
It's tough to gauge. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I know it was definitely, it seemed like it was almost kind of the speed that the train normally travels, you know, when it's between stations.
Wow. That could be significant. Last question. You describe injuries, head injuries. What did you see?
I saw a few people with, you know, cuts and, you know, around their foreheads and eyes. A few people with you know, there was someone who, I mean, he looked like he almost had his thumb sliced off. You know, and injuries, like lots of cuts, lots of head injuries and hand injuries.
Okay.
From what I saw.
Jim, we really appreciate your eyewitness account. Thank you for your time, and our best to you, okay? And we're glad to know you're okay. Jim Finan, eyewitness there on the train.
Yeah.
I was about 30 feet away from the train when it pulled into the station, and I observed it coming at a high rate of speed. It went over the bumper block, basically through the air, traveled about another 40 feet, came to a rest when it hit the wall of the waiting room. So
I want to understand what you're saying, Mike. You're saying that the train, the first car of the train became airborne?
To a degree, yeah, because there's a solid concrete and steel bumper block to where if the train was to go too far, it would hit it.
Right.
Apparently the train was traveling fast enough to have hit it and gone over it. So it kind of, yeah, it went airborne to a degree.
Mike, did you hear any screeching brakes, anything? You work on locomotives. You know what brakes sound like. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't. I heard just an initial bomb sound. I knew it wasn't a bomb because I saw it happen, but it was just initially just a horrendous exploding noise and concrete dust, electrical wires, and the train flying into the depot. It was couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, it was something you really wouldn't, working there for so long, you'd never believe that could happen.
And so people understand what that terminal looks like. The track actually terminates, and then people can walk in that area where the track terminates.
Well, yes, the track terminates, and then they exit the train, and then the terminal is in front of where the tracks terminate.
Yeah. And so can you describe that scene? And I know, because I've seen you take deep breaths here, I know that this is difficult. What did you see immediately after? Describe the scene after the impact.
Well, we ran over, and there were a lot of people kicking out windows, trying to exit the train. We told them not to, because if there had been any catenary wires are touching the top of the train, and you exit the train and touch the ground, you get electrocuted. A lot of people don't realize that. So we tried to keep them on the train, kept them on the train. And we determined there was no power, so we were able to enter the train. And we got into the first car. We got halfway through the first car. The second half of the first car was completely destroyed to where they were crawling on their hands and knees, and we were trying to get, you know, as many people out. I assisted in maybe 3 or 4 people getting out. Then the first responders came and told me to exit.
Can you describe the extent of the injuries that you saw?
I have no idea how many injuries there are. I saw some pretty serious injuries. They were alive and conscious, but yet very serious. But like I said, once the first responders and the police came, they made the rest of us stay far, because they also believe structurally the depot is not you know, it's not structurally sound anymore, because the whole roof was ripped apart by the train. So as far as the amount of casualties, I absolutely have no idea. Hopefully it's very few.
But you're saying in terms of the damage to the train, the first half of the first car was destroyed.
Yeah, the first half of the first car was pretty heavily damaged.
And the engineer, as you know, it would have been in that lead car, right?
Yes.
Even though the train was powered by a diesel, right at the back.
The locomotive is in the rear, but he's operating the locomotive traction power from the first car. So he's in the first car, and he's right in the front of the first car. So what his condition is, I don't know.
Now we said a moment ago, you work on locomotives. Does this particular model of locomotive have positive train control or anything that would govern the speed? Is there the so-called dead man switch on that?
Well, yeah, it's not called a dead man anymore. It's called an alerter. There's many different positive train control, you know, aspects in use here. In the depot, I mean, that's not my expertise. I don't, you know, I couldn't comment on any kind of train control in the depot. I really don't know. That's not my field.
Sure, understood. But fair to say you went into the train with others, I guess.
Yeah, there was me and about 4 or 5 other. I think the station master was there, and actually a couple of non-employees came in. Anybody that could help, that was right there.
If you had to sum up your reaction to all of this, Mike, what would it be?
No, it was just shocking. I mean, kind of surreal. Just completely shocking. Like a trade center type of thing. You don't really believe it's happening in front of your face. I mean, I walk past that area where it happened 100 times a day, and I could never imagine that happening. So seeing it happen was almost unbelievable at the time. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. That's all I can say.
Mike Larson, I know this is difficult for you, Mike, and I appreciate your taking the time. Thank you for doing what you did.
Crash in New Jersey. At least 1 person has died. More than 100 others have been injured, some of them critically. For the very latest, let's head straight to the scene. And ABC's Gio Benitez, who's there in Hoboken, New Jersey. Good morning, Gio.
Amy, good morning to you. A rough morning indeed for so many passengers here in this area. Just take a look. There are emergency workers all over the place trying to get a handle of this. This is a very, very serious situation here in Hoboken. One of the most popular train stops in all of New York City, in fact, here in Hoboken and in New Jersey, of course. We're talking about those 100 people who are injured, so many of them seriously, some of them critically injured, and of course that 1 person who has died. We have spoken with a witness. Take a listen to what he saw.
Gio, I know that we are hearing from witnesses throughout the morning, and you talked with them specifically, many people describing it as a shaking and just merely the fact that the train wouldn't stop. There were no brakes, and it came up onto the platform, as we're seeing some of that video coming in from the train station. What were some of those witnesses telling you?
Well, they were saying that train just slammed into this platform, and that's what we're worried about, is did it hit many people as it was, slamming into this platform? Were those people just waiting there, waiting for this train? We know that the train was late, so we don't know what factored into this train slamming into the platform. When it did that, we're told that one of the columns actually collapsed, and so part of the roof inside that train station also collapsed, Amy.
And Gio, we've heard reports throughout the morning that there may be people still trapped as emergency crews and first responders rushed to the scene almost immediately. This happened just before 9 a.m. East Coast time. Any word on what's happening inside in terms of any rescue or recovery efforts?
We have seen emergency worker after emergency worker, Amy, going in and out of this. They are desperately trying to get there. Many of these trucks have been just moving all over the place trying to get there to see who is still trapped because we don't know how many of the injured were passengers and how many of the injured were just waiting for this train. As you can imagine, this is rush hour traffic. I was getting calls from people who said, I was going to get on that train, but I missed it by 5 minutes. This platform here is, of course, the fifth busiest in in New Jersey right now. It's the fifth busiest platform. So as you can imagine, so many people were right there. We know that the first car was most seriously impacted. We're told that other people in the other cars were actually able to walk out of the train.
Yeah, we've heard from some of those people. And just for folks at home who aren't familiar with this area, this is just across the Hudson River from New York City. And for most people who are there in Hoboken, this is the last stop, the final boarding stop to make their trip into New York City each day. This is a huge commuter hub there, Hoboken to New Jersey. We know that the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, is on the scene. They're now investigating possible causes. Gio, what have eyewitnesses said? Is there any indication what may have happened here?
All they were saying is that it was going very fast. So, Amy, that's all we know right now. But one of the things that the NTSB is going to be looking at, they're going to be looking at maintenance. They're going to be looking, of course, at human factors, possible fatigue. You know, did that operator sleep enough? We're going to be looking at track condition, the train itself. Many of these trains are older trains, so they're going to look at whether it was properly maintained. So many factors could be responsible for this, Amy.
All right, Gio, thank you so much for that eyewitness report. We'll let you get to doing what you do best, to get out there and talk to people and see what's happening at this hour. In the meantime, we have someone who witnessed part of this tragedy unfold. Matt Hallidick was on the other side, I believe, when the train came up onto the tracks, off the tracks, onto the platform there. Matt, I know you're joining us by phone. Just set the scene for us. Tell us what happened, what you saw.
Well, I was coming from the opposite side, like you said. I was coming from the light rail side, from Bayonne by the water. And as I was getting off the train, I had my headphones in, and I heard a woman yelling that there was an accident, and the train had crashed. You couldn't get to the street; everything was blocked off, and wasn't sure, what she was saying or what was going on at that point. But as I turned the corner to go into the station, it was already pretty chaotic. There were people everywhere, and stopping and taking photos. You could see the train had gone through the station. You could see the roof and the, some of the structural part of the station that collapsed. There was water leaking. The wires were hanging. It was pretty crazy.
I can't even imagine. We know one person has been killed, more than 100 other injured. I can't imagine what that scene looked like. Did you see some of the wounded? I know that there were a lot of walking wounded, reports of people, others perhaps trapped as well. Just tell us what you saw.
Well, as I walked through the waiting area inside to get out to get to work, I saw some people who, looked like they had been wounded in some way. I'm not sure if they were on the train or, in the station and were affected that way, but they were, a lot of people shaken up. Some people getting some medical attention. When I got outside, there were some people who were on the ground, getting medical attention, and that's when you really start to see an influx of first responders. There were already some on the scene, but then there was, as I was getting out, there was a ton of, police, ton of fire personnel, medical personnel, and they were, just been an influx of first responders all morning.
All right. Well, we are certainly glad you were okay. Thank you so much for setting the scene for us, telling us what you saw this morning. Of course, such an unfortunate situation. Matt Hallidick, thank you so much. And again, more than 100 people injured. We know that one person has been killed. That train coming into Hoboken just before 9 a.m. this morning on its way to New York City. We are going to have much more on this story throughout the day here at ABC News. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, though, we are going to return now to regular programming in some parts of the country. That is Good Morning America. And of course, there will be a complete wrap up on World News Tonight with David Muir. And of course, you can get any information at abcnews.com throughout the day. I'm Amy Robach here in New York. Have a great day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.